I left meetings crying at the end of the night, just like running out. I was put in very dangerous situations multiple times, but I was like, oh, well, Jehovah will take care of me, so it's fine. But like I could have gotten kidnapped in the Philippines. I was like, I need to get away from my father and his wife. I can't handle this. I want to die. I need to get anywhere else.
Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. We are back for another episode of ExJW Women Speak Out. Today, I am here with Lindsey. She reached out to me through my forum. She wanted to come on and share her story. So we are going to have a conversation today about, her life, everything she's dealt with within the organization, what that looked like, and we're just going to have this conversation. So welcome, Lindsey, for being here and for being willing to do this. I know this is not always the easiest thing.
Thank you so much. No, I'm really glad that you give people a platform to be able to do this.
It's been really great, honestly. I genuinely have enjoyed meeting so many amazing women, and we all have such different stories and yet so many similarities that have linked, our stories, what we've gone through so much together. So I appreciate you doing this. And as you know, in the very beginning, I'm just going to kind of take my step back. I'll let you start from the beginning. Were you born and raised in this? Were you brought in later? What that looked like? And I'll let you start from the beginning.
Okay. So I was going to go ahead and start with my parents' relationship with the religion. My mom and my dad both grew up in the religion. My mom suffered really bad abuse. Her dad was an elder that just horrible things that he would do and say and how he would treat his family. I'm honestly shocked that she was able to stay with the religion like she did. My father was also raised in the religion. I believe his mom learned about the religion before she had him. So I think he was like first generation born in, and his dad was not great either. Something happened in the hall between the elders or something, and his dad doesn't let go of anything that happens. He remembers everything. And so he was like, nope, that's it. And so he became inactive like decades upon decades ago and just not a very loving person. But so that wasn't great. And then continuing on, my father would do things for years that he hid from the elders and then would say, oh, well, it's because of this that I'm not a ministerial servant, or it's because of this person or something. But it's like he was just hiding things he was doing and wouldn't talk about it. So that's their history with that. My mom disassociated herself when I was around 9, I think, 9 or 10, because she needed to get away from my father. He was horrifically abusive, emotionally, mentally. And she felt like that was her way of getting a clean break and being able to get away with him from him, along with the divorce that they did. So growing up, we would go to meetings, like we'd go to all the meetings, we would go in service. So it was like we were involved, but we weren't really devout. I don't really remember ever doing family worship as a kid, but he was very hypocritical because my father wasn't a spiritual person at all, but he would use the religion to get us to fall in line, which is, I feel like, a lot of people's experience. And this was one thing. This was a hard period in time during the divorce because it was nasty. My father made it nasty. He made sure my mother got nothing. Horrible person. He would call his family and they were abusive to my mom. They would say horrible things about my mom to my brother and me growing up. So we were afraid of her, even though she had done nothing. And they would lie. But my mom was a good person. And so she wouldn't reciprocate that. And so I feel like it made things a little bit worse for her because she wouldn't say what was going on because she just didn't want to pass on that to the kids, which of course is the healthy thing to do, to not give that to little kids to carry. But I remember my father was dating someone during the divorce, and I remember finding that out. And I do remember after I found that out, we tried to talk with him about it. That was later. After they had gotten married, I found out he was dating her while he was getting divorced. And I remember my brother and I were saying, why would you do that? That's not okay. How could you do that? And he was like, you do not talk about my family that way. And we were like 12 and 14. And then after saying that, he turned around and walked away. And I remember that was the That was the line where we knew where we stood. Like, his wife and her daughter were his family. Like, he didn't actually want us. He took us from our mom, but he didn't want us. And that was very clear, because after the stepmom came into the picture, she immediately inserted herself into our lives. I would try to ask my father something while he'd be working from home, and she would say, "I told you not to talk to him while he's busy. You should have just come to me." And that just kept happening over and over and over, to the point where I was not allowed to speak to my father anymore. Yeah. And it was sad, because my mom fought so hard for us, but the judge was biased against her, and so gave my father full custody. Basically, she got like every other weekend, but gave him full custody, even though my father was caught in very clear lies in court. He should not have won. It was because the judge was biased. And it's funny, because I remember you're supposed to say whether or not you have a relationship with someone while you're getting divorced. And he did end up saying it. I remember he had her sleep over while I was there. Like, he was like, "She's too tired to drive home. Don't tell anyone." And I remember being like 12, and I'm like, "Where is she?" So I went to our bonus room, and I'm like, no one's here. I looked at the couch. No one's here. I'm in my room. My brother's in his room. But he's like, "Don't tell anyone. It looks bad." So it's like, starting from then, they're always like, "Don't talk about family things outside of the house. We don't talk about any of that." Which the religion just, as a kid, you're told your parents know best. You're dumb. You're just a kid. You don't get it yet. And then I was also a good kid, so I listened to that. So that also was detrimental to me growing up, because I took the religion seriously, like starting around 12, which, like, I was, of course, afraid of dying in Armageddon. Yeah. So I started taking the religion seriously at 12. And that's when they got married. That's when the abuse started happening. And then I had just started talking to my mom about it, because we had been told, do not talk about your stepmom. Do not talk about any of the things that are happening here. You're brats. I remember she said she was looking for something, and she's digging through a drawer, and she found like 5 extension cables. And I remember she looked at me and she went, "You're so spoiled. Your dad has 5 extension cables."
Oh my God.
He just he just buys whatever he wants. He just buys you whatever you want. I remember being 12 and thinking, what is wrong with you? They're extension cables. They have nothing to do with me. But I remember that was the first solid thing she did. But at 14, we moved to Missouri. And my brother and I had just started talking about the abuse with my mom before we moved. So we hadn't been able to quite get the help we needed, although we had just started. But then we moved to Missouri, and we're going every other weekend to Tennessee for visits. And I remember on one of the drives back, my father asked me, "So why are you still going down to see her, even though she's disfellowshipped? Like, why are you, like, okay with that?" And so then, of course, trying to take the religion seriously, I stopped talking to her at 14. So then I didn't have my mom to talk to. My stepmom made sure I knew my emotions weren't valid, didn't have a place. It was made clear I shouldn't talk to my father about things because he doesn't want to talk to me. So I was emotionally pretty homeless. Couldn't talk to the mom. They made it clear I didn't have a home where I lived either. So from then on, I started auxiliary pioneering at 14. I had made 2 friends that lived like 3 hours away. He had been homeschooled his whole life. He was auxiliary pioneering. No, I think he was regular pioneering at like 14. And he was like, "Oh, you should regular pioneer." And I'm like, sure, I don't see why I couldn't. So I started homeschooling. And then just started auxiliary pioneering. And then when I was 16, I started regular pioneering, because all of these people are giving me affirmations. And they're saying, "You're doing great. You're amazing. You're wonderful." And I wasn't getting that from home. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is where I should put my time and my effort. So that just reinforced me putting more into the organization. I didn't have anything else. And then, of course, always worrying about dying if you don't take the religion seriously is like, what else do you think about, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
So that was hard for me. And then through all of that, my brother never really took to the religion. And I remember after we moved to Missouri, he told my dad, I want to move in with my mom. And my dad had said, if you move in with your mom, you are not welcome back. So then my brother's like 16, 17, like, I'm not welcome back? What do you mean? Like, so he didn't end up moving in with my mom, but he would have actually gotten what he needed for life from my mom. He just wanted to control him. It would have looked bad. My father is all about looking good to people. He's all about appearances, just like my stepmom. She's a narcissist, which I'll get more into later. It's pretty fun. But it was just controlling and making sure that he looked good. So I remember I would try to talk to the older people at the hall. I didn't have friends that were my age. I tried to have some. I would invite them to hang out. They would say, okay. I wouldn't get invited to stuff because my husband and I talked about it later. And he's like, I think it's because you're the narc. I'm like, what do you mean? Because I took their religion so seriously. They're like, she's not any fun.
Yeah.
So I didn't have young friends. I would pray for them, but I wouldn't get them. And so I'm like, well, the articles say that if you don't have friends your age, maybe the answer is having friends that are older than you. So we went to a hall that didn't have young people. So I was like, okay, I'll make friends with these people, you know, with the older ones in the hall. And then I started pioneering. And so they were my best friends. All of them were like 60 plus. And I would just be going around all day. So that was hard. I remember I would invite people out all the time and they would say yes if they weren't busy, but like I never got invited. So that was hard. So I didn't really have too much feeling of belonging and that I didn't belong at home either. So not only was I not emotionally welcome, but I was told we handle all family problems within the family. You do not talk to other people about this. Nothing that happens in here gets talked about with people outside. We weren't allowed to have any of our belongings anywhere in the house except for in our own rooms. My brother and I were not allowed to exist anywhere other than our rooms. I remember I had turned 21 during COVID. I went out and I got some alcohol and I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I could drink when I was in Taiwan, which I will also get to, but I could drink there and I'm like, cool, now I can drink in America. She wouldn't even let me put that alcohol in the alcohol cabinet because she didn't want any part of me not in my room. So I kept my alcohol, like 2 wine bottles and some hard liquor, in my room on the shelf. And I got called out by people while doing service during COVID. They're like, is that alcohol on your shelf? So now I look awful, but it's literally because I'm not allowed to be responsible by putting alcohol with the other alcohol. It was crazy.
Gosh, that's insane.
I'm like, the worst part is for my brother. He had it worse. He couldn't eat food without being made to feel awful about himself. If he ate in the home, you eat too much. You should be paying more if you're going to eat the food. Like you're also like ungrateful for it. You wait for it to get cold, which that's another topic, but like you wait for it to get cold. You should be paying more. And then there was, if he didn't eat her food, like, well, of course you don't have any money because you're eating out all the time. We have food here. What do you mean you're trying to get food elsewhere? Like you're making a bad decision. Then if he ate food out, he'd be like, man, I'm gaining weight. I feel so bad. And she's like, well, of course you are because you eat out all the time. If you didn't eat out all the time, then you wouldn't be fat.
Wow.
And then he was like, well, I'll just buy a mini fridge and I'll keep groceries in my room so that I have something to eat. Because we also were not allowed to use the refrigerator for our own food because she didn't want to make space. And she was like, we have a refrigerator in the kitchen. And also, if you keep food in your room, you're going to make my daughter become selfish because then she'll think she can keep food in her room and she won't want to share. So we weren't allowed to eat the food in the home. I had it better. I could have sandwiches and I could sometimes have leftovers. I couldn't have mac and cheese because her daughter liked that. I couldn't have some of the frozen foods because her daughter liked that. I wasn't like allowed to eat bacon. Like that was such a huge deal. It's like if she made bacon, I could have a little bit. I could never make my own. And then I saw her daughter one time just making bacon and my brain like exploded. I'm like, you're making yourself bacon? She's like, yeah, why wouldn't I? Like
Wow.
she had foods for herself that I wasn't allowed to have, that my brother wasn't allowed to have. He could not eat food. I had it better than he did in that regard, but I just like that eats me up.
That's
He
horrible.
couldn't even eat food
Yeah.
without feeling just awful. So that really was unfortunate.
That's horrible. Just really briefly, I want to go back about how you said like they were very much about their appearance. I feel like that is so unbelievably common. I feel like I've had this conversation with almost everyone I've interviewed where it's like who you were in your home, which most of these people were terrible people, was nowhere near what they personified in that congregation and in the Kingdom Hall. And it's such an abusive tactic in my mind because it's like they know they're terrible people and they're doing stuff like what was happening to you and your brother at your home. So I feel like they do it in a way where if you bring it up, then no one's going to believe you. They'll be like, there's no way. No, that's you're exaggerating. You're lying.
Yep.
And it's so disgusting how manipulative some of these really nasty people that are in this organization are and how they can just get away with it. It drives me crazy. And I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That's like, I can't even imagine what you guys had to deal with at such a young age. That is just horrible.
Yeah. Thank you.
So you mentioned you started pioneering, or you were accelerating pioneering at 12. You were pioneering by 14, right? Or was it reversed? Yes.
I was
Auxiliary
pioneering
pioneering at 14.
by 14
Okay,
and
there
then
you go.
regular by 16.
Okay. How old were you when you were baptized?
I think I was 14. Yeah, I
Okay.
was 14.
Okay. So basically right out the gates, you went into doing more for the, okay. All right.
Yeah, I remember I got baptized because someone started asking me, oh, are you baptized? And I went, no. And they're like, So then I'm like, okay, cool. Guess I have to, all right. That's
Okay.
nice. Like the judging starts immediately if you're not baptized by like 12. They're like, you're 14 and you haven't made a lifelong dedication yet. It's not okay.
No.
It's really not okay.
No. All right. So I'll let you continue your story. Sorry. I just wanted to bring up the one thing about the personality types that are just so, that
There's
thrive
so
in that
many.
organization.
Oh my God. I'll get into that later on, more about that. But like I had a boss that was a witness. It was the worst job I've ever had in my life. And he was friends with my father. And I would kind of try to share some things like, here's what my father did. What do you think? And he would just grimace at me. He was just like, anytime I tried to mention anything. And he's like, ugh. Because he wanted to stay friends with him and didn't want to hear about bad things he did because he liked him. It's like so many witnesses just, they don't care.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep. Absolutely.
But I started learning Mandarin Chinese when I was about 15 for school. And then I started going out in service with them at 16. And that was all on my own because I was learning Chinese for school. And I thought, okay, well, hey, foreign language is like the next step because you know the hierarchy of where you are spiritually. It's like, oh, I'm auxiliary, pioneer. What do you do next? Bethel or foreign language. It's just the branches.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, foreign language. Okay, I can do that. But I was struggling with like crises of faith. Like when I was 14 and 17, I remember I had breakdowns wondering like, is God even real? But where do you go with that? You can't talk to anyone about that. I wasn't in a home where that would have been, I don't know if tolerated is the word, but it wouldn't have been accepted and helped and nourished to be better. It would have been, well, of course he is. Haven't you done your research, etc.? So I tried to dig in to like the God's Word or Man's book, the blue book on evolution. Tried to dig into that, and that was helpful. And then later I found out that some of the quotes are quoted incorrectly to make it sound like it's saying something it isn't. So it's like, okay, cool. That's nice. But I remember at 17, that was the last like crisis I had had. And I remember that's when the cognitive dissonance started. Because I remember thinking, how am I supposed to know if this religion is the truth And if this is all true, if I'm not allowed to look at other sources and compare, how am I supposed to know? We're taught when doing papers for school, do not use just one source. But if I looked at Google or I did some other research, then I'm like, I could die. I'm not using the organization. I could die if I look at something else. So I remember at 17, I was like, well, I guess there's no way to really know, but I guess if they say they're from God and God tells the truth, then I just have to believe them. And that's like when the cognitive dissonance was like in full effect.
Yep.
Like I just stopped using logic. I'm just like, okay, I just have to believe what I read, because the difficulty of trying to figure it out without being able to look was just too much.
Yep.
So when I was 18, I had been learning Chinese. I had started going to Chinese meetings. And I remember I was planning on going to Taiwan. From the beginning, I planned on living there. I was like, I need to get away from my father and his wife. I can't handle this. I want to die. I need to get anywhere else. And I remember at first I said to my father, yeah, I'll just go for 3 months, you know. It was a lie from the beginning. I knew I was going to live there. He was like 1 month. And I'm like, okay, 2. And then he wouldn't say anything. And I'm like, okay, 3. So I just kept working it up. And it was funny because he had nothing to do with my life. I remember being excited that I had a minute with him when he went to do, like, separate the magazines at the hall. I was like, oh, I'll go with you. And I was so excited because I would have some time with him. And I told my husband, and he's like, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Like, you had so little time.
That's so
and he cared
sad.
so little to do things with you that going to the hall and separating magazines made you excited. I was like, yeah. But so I was looking for tickets to Taiwan, and because I was told I should be able to make decisions using common sense, but then I would do things and then I would be told, well, why didn't you ask? So that I'd ask and I'd be told, use common sense. Then I'd do something and I'd be told, why didn't you ask? So I just was stuck in this place of like inaction. I couldn't do anything. So I remember asking for help finding tickets to Taiwan, but they just kept ignoring me and just not doing anything with it. So I remember one night I bought the ticket and I walked out of my room and went into the living room and said, hey, I bought the ticket. I'm leaving on March 3rd. And they didn't say anything. And then I just walked back into my room and they never talked about it.
Wow.
Like that conversation was never had. It was like silence all the way up until like I left. Although my stepmom threw a fit that I was making plans with other people and not with them all the way up until, and I'm like, okay, sure. So she said that she was going to drop me off at the airport, not even my father. And then she decided she didn't want to. I think she was throwing a fit because she does that to get what she wants. So then my father ended up taking me. I remember asking him to co-sign so I could have a credit card for when I went abroad. And he was like, I mean, I have a really high credit score. And, you know, if you get a credit card and then you don't pay it, it's going to be bad for my credit. So I'd really prefer not to. But if I have to, I will. But why don't you just get like one of those insured cards? You just put $100 down and get that. And I remember saying, well, I need the money. I need every dollar I have to live abroad. And so I remember I just went without a credit card. So I like lived in a foreign country, I went to so many different foreign countries on like my visa runs because I had to leave the country and I had no credit card.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It's hilarious because he's very well off financially, but he did not ever want to do anything financially for his kids. His wife decided on a whim one time, I want a camper. It's like $4,500. They went and got it the same week.
Wow.
It was crazy. He has money, but he's very selfish.
Yeah.
Unless it looks good to someone else, because he gave me some money for my wedding and then went around and started telling people how much he gave, and it got back to me. It's never giving to give. It's always so he looks good. So at 18, I was in Taiwan. Someone helped me with internet, get phone service, you know. My father barely talked to me. I remember I kept reaching out because I was lonely, and he just barely replied. Like, he very clearly didn't want to be talking to me. So I remember right after I got there, I think I tried to talk to him for like 2 weeks and nothing happened. So I let a month go by and he never reached out. I finally gave in and reached out to him after like a month.
Wow.
Then after I decided to live there, I believe months would go by without contact because he just never reached out. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to be that desperate. He went to an international convention in Australia, which is a 4-hour flight away from Taiwan, and he did not come and visit me. He had already taken time off to go to another international convention in Texas. So he had 2 international conventions that he took time off to go to. And he's like, well, you were going to be home in like another couple months anyway. So, you know, I don't have the PTO. I already took it off to go to the international convention. 2 of them. And that doesn't include the one that happened in St. Louis that he was local for. He went to 3 in like 1 year.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
And then he got angry when I told him I was going to stay in Taiwan. But what's he going to do? He lives in St. Louis and I'm in Taiwan. So he sent his wife with more of my clothing. And she immediately started like taking over my life, telling me like what to do, redecorating my room, telling people, make sure you take care of her. She doesn't get out enough. She doesn't do enough. Like, you need to make sure you're taking. And I'm like, who are you? I have my own life here. But she just immediately, and then she's like very loud. And she just started being the star and like, oh, look, I'm the foreigner. Look how funny I am. It was interesting. I hated her being there, but I had been so alone. It was almost better than nothing.
Yeah.
Which is, I was so alone there. Going to Taiwan was a wonderful cultural experience, but it was like one of the worst times of my life because I was so alone. I was alone before I left. I didn't have friends. The older people in the Chinese congregation were not really interested in being friends with me because obviously the life experience is so different. So it was like I didn't have anywhere really to go. But I remember I found out later, my father's wife had said, like, I think we were packing up for her to leave. And she was like, well, of course I didn't want to come here. Like, who wants to get on a flight and go halfway across the world? And it's like, I thought, because I found out after that, she had been going around telling everyone she could, oh, Lindsay's in my relationship is so bad. I'm going halfway across the world to make it better. Which, like, thank God people, like, read into that. They're like, it's so bad you have to go across the world.
Yeah.
So that didn't look how she wanted it to, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, she went home and then bragged about how amazing she was for traveling so far. But she made sure to say to me, well, of course I didn't want to get on the plane and come over here. Who does? And I'm like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Why did you do this then?
Yeah.
Like, better her than no one, I guess. But it's just for looks. Again, it wasn't like it was good. It immediately was sour.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was basically alone the whole time I was in Taiwan. There were older sisters in the congregation that were nice to me, but they have their families. I'm single. I'm young. Like, we would go out and do things, but it's not like the hanging out. And then the young people at the hall I was at never wanted to do things that I saw. They would have a couple of get-togethers, but it wasn't like just hanging out, at least not with me. So I was pretty alone until an Australian sister moved into the apartment I was renting. Then a Korean woman moved in. We got to be very good friends, but I was just so emotionally dead. I was spent. I started doing port witnessing, and that's even more like, oh, make sure you memorize different greetings in different languages. Make sure you reach out to everyone that's walking by you. And I have anxiety anyway. So I would be just absolutely spent. I left meetings crying at the end of the night, just like running out. I was put in very dangerous situations multiple times, but I was like, oh, well, Jehovah will take care of me, so it's fine. But like I could have gotten kidnapped in the Philippines one time. Yeah, I was put on a boat and sent to a main island to then find the airport. And I was like, I could have been kidnapped. It was scary. But yeah, so I was dissociated, so I was worried, but I didn't actually like quite get how much danger I was in, which is kind of good, I guess.
Yeah. I guess for in that moment, right? Looking
Yeah,
back, not
right.
so much.
Got me through, I guess. And I remember I was so desperate for friends that at one point I started offering to like pay the fee, like for someone to go and do something with me. If it cost money, I offered to pay for them. And there was one sister who like took me up on that. She was around my age. She had been constantly busy. And then I needed something. I needed any sort of contact with anyone because I didn't have anything. And then she began like accepting the offers. And then it turned into a weird pseudo partnership. Like she would come over to my house constantly, which is fine with friends. But then she started like moving in. Like she started leaving her things in my place, like a toothbrush, a contact case, like her hair towel. And then I remember I woke up one morning and she was just like staring at me. And I was like, this is not what I want.
Girl, this is not what I signed up for.
Right? I'm like, I didn't. And then she would be like, oh, like, you know how they say like you are one flesh with your partner. She started making that joke because we were together all the time. She's like, oh, we are one flesh. And I'm like, this is getting, and then she would just assume that she was coming over to my house like after service. So she'd be like, okay, hop on. And then I'd get on her motorcycle and she'd take me home and we would just be at my house. So it turned into like dating.
Yeah.
And then I remember I tried to set boundaries and she said, it feels like my heart is being ripped out of my chest. And I'm like, okay, things have gone a lot further than I thought.
Yeah.
So that was not fun to deal with. And then after being in Taiwan for about a year and 4 months was the total, I was dissociating so badly that I knew I would sin and not care if I didn't move back to the U.S. and have some sort of support. And moving back in was immediately horrible. They were not happy that I was back. I had a friend pick me up a few days earlier than I had said I would be back from Taiwan so that I could get little streamers or something and decorate the house. And then I was hoping that my father and my brother and his wife would be at the meeting. I could go in, set a little something up, and then they'd come home. But they were there because during the international meeting, attendance didn't matter.
Oh, okay.
If you were working on stuff. So they were there. And so I just walked in and then my stepmom went, when did you get in? I'm like, what, a few days ago? And she went, you got in a few days ago and you stayed with someone else instead of staying with us. You could have been here 2 days ago. And she just immediately went to bed. And then I remember my father sat on the couch and he was like, hey, it's so good to have you back. And then he walked upstairs after the stepmom because she was angry. And then I sat there alone on the couch 5 minutes after I got to the house. And I'm like, why did I come back? Why am I here? But I had nowhere else to go. And I couldn't stay in Taiwan on my own or else I would have no feelings whatsoever. So that was fun. Then they had the 2019 International Convention. And I remember after I got back from Taiwan, I started therapy a little bit after and allowed myself to start being angry at my stepmom for how she treated my brother and me. And because I had been told my whole life, it's your fault that you're upset. I'm right. You're wrong. This is your fault. Your feelings are invalid. But finally, I allowed myself to realize, no, this was awful. This was horrible of her to treat my brother and me this way. So I started allowing myself to get angry. And then I don't remember what she did, but she did something that made me furious on the weekend of the International in 2019. And I was like, hey, is it cool if I go to my friend's house? I already had my stuff packed, but I was like, I was good. I had to ask still. And my father was like, okay. So I went back to my room, was grabbing my stuff, and she came in and she's like, is something wrong? It seems like something's very clearly wrong. And you should talk about it with me before you go talk about it with someone else. And I'm like, no, I don't have anything to say to you. So that was funny to be at a convention about love when I was staying at a friend's house. That was hilarious to me. And so then I remember it was after the convention. I was so upset and angry and just couldn't handle living at my father's anymore. At 5:30 in the morning, I threw all of my stuff into 2 big suitcases. I threw them in the car, and then I waited for my dad to come downstairs to work at like 6. And I told him I'm moving in with my friend. I can't live here anymore. And he went, okay, like with what car? And I'm like, the red car that I drive. And he's like, well, that's my car. And I need it in case there's an emergency. So I need 2 cars. So you can't have it. He's like, and then also, are you sure you want to move in somewhere where you don't know what it's like? Like, you know, the evil that you know.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, I don't have a car. And my friend lived like in the middle of nowhere. So I couldn't live with her and not have a car.
Yeah.
And then I tried to move in with someone else who was in the city so I could walk to work. And I remember talking to the elders about it. And this one guy was like, but she has a 90-year-old man living with her aging father. Like, that's inappropriate. And I'm like, he's 90. And he's like, you don't know what men can do. And I'm like, okay. So that was shot down, even though that would have been great. And they're like, the elder was like, if I could live with a stern German mom, then you can deal with what you're dealing with. Just talk to them. So I remember I went home and I was crying and I'm like, I feel like you guys have not supported me. And my father's wife was like, oh, what did she say? It was just completely dismissive. Like, yeah, we've been absolutely supportive of you. You're just upset that you don't have any control over what we do or something. Like, we've done completely everything that we ever could have for you. Are you done? And then got up and left because she had an appointment. And then my father just sat there and he was like, so do you feel better? And I'm like, no, of course I don't feel better. But he was just useless for anything.
Wow.
Then there was a predator who had flirted with me since I was 14. I remember telling my stepmom, hey, this guy's flirting with me. And she went, oh, he's harmless. Don't worry about it. So she allowed that predatory behavior to continue. And then he moved to Florida when I was like 17 or 18, I think. And then he heard that my brother and I were going to be driving down to Florida to see my aunt. And he was like, oh, I'll fly up. And then you guys can pick me up from the airport. I'll spend a few days hanging out with like my father and stepmother. And then we can all drive down together. And so he flew up, hung out, and then halfway through the drive, he was like, you know, you've really been like someone special to me. You've treated me differently than anyone else has treated me before. He's my father's age, by the way. And I remember saying, isn't that the great thing about Jehovah's organization? We all just love each other. And then I turned the radio up. But like, nah, he tried to ask me out when I was 19 and he was my father's age.
Oh, that's so gross.
Yeah, and he talked about girls all the time. He talked about young women constantly. I hope that other women were protected, unlike I was.
Yeah.
But then COVID hit and I needed to move out because I couldn't handle it anymore. I started asking around about a car for $200 because that's what I could afford and still move out. And then I told my father and he was like, well, we were going to buy you a car for when you went to Bethel because I had been floating that around. And he's like, so I don't see a reason why we couldn't get you one now. But again, for Bethel, so that they could tell people that they bought me a car for Bethel.
Yep.
So then when I was 19, my stepmom had, without my consent, tried to set me up with someone that she liked. And then when I was 21, I met my husband. And she was saying, you're not ready. Haven't we talked about this? Like, you're nowhere near prepared. But the reason why she said that was partially because she's into conspiracy theories. Like, she's actually a bit crazy. Like, she is not mentally well.
Yeah.
And she loves conspiracy theories. And my husband came over. He's very well knowledgeable about the organization, the teachings, everything. And she said something. And then my husband Sean had said, no, actually, that's incorrect. Here, look at this. And he showed her the article. And she immediately did not like him because she knew she wasn't in control. He was willing to speak up. So right after they met him, my dad reached out and said, hey, I have concerns. We need to talk about Sean. And I said, you just met him. What concerns could you possibly have? And he's like, the fact that you don't want to talk to me about this is a red flag, because Proverbs 15:22 says, plans fail when there's no consultation, but you will have success with many advisors, which was just him saying, you not talking to me and listening to what I'm telling you is wrong, because I'm telling you what choice you need to make. He was so angry. Like, so Sean offered to go over and talk to them because he thought the concerns were about him. They were not. He went over there. For the first 15 minutes, they insulted his physical appearance and said that he had mental health problems because there was a history of mental health issues in his family. And then the next 2 hours, they spent talking about saying Lindsey cannot communicate. She shuts down and goes quiet. She's emotionally unavailable. And are you prepared to take care of a vegetable? Because she will become a vegetable one day. She is unable to cope with life.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it's like she will become a vegetable. And Sean asked, what have you done to help her? And they're like, oh, well, nothing. Because we messed up her brother. The we is crazy because the stepmom wasn't around for getting ADHD help for my brother. Oh, we messed him up. We didn't want to mess up Lindsey. I asked to see a doctor, and my father went, ask your stepmom. And she went, insurance doesn't work the way you're saying, and then just kept sweeping the floor. So I actually ended up having a panic attack while I was in Florida. And my aunt took me to an urgent care. And then my father called, why didn't you tell me you needed to see a doctor? And I'm like, I did. And he's like, well, here's the number for mine. And I'm like, okay, cool, thanks. A little too late, isn't it? And then the stepmom was like, oh, just blame me for everything. It's all my fault. It's like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So that was not, she didn't believe in medicine. She didn't believe in doctors unless it's for her, because she has bipolar and ADHD. Although she doesn't take meds, so she only does the ADHD stuff. But they don't believe in medicine or doctors. And then finally I'm like, I need a doctor. He's like, okay, well, here's our insurance. And then I remember I picked the first doctor I found. And then I went, and he's like, why did you pick a specialist? And I'm like, I found the first doctor I could on that list. And he went silent and then just said nothing after that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
I'm
after
kind
they-
of curious, just really quickly, I'm super curious what your husband's mindset was when he's sitting there and hearing them basically bash you. That has to be confusing. Like, parents are supposed to be such loving people, and you would think they'd be like grilling the person because they're not good enough for the person they love. And yet they were almost just being like, trying to talk him out of it. Like, that's crazy.
Oh my God. They said that when Sean broke up with me, he could come back over and they would have beers to celebrate. I'm not even kidding.
Oh my God.
They said they would have beers. I had told them ahead of time, like, this is what they're going to say about me. I said, they're going to say I can't communicate. They're going to say this. They're going to say that. But I had already talked with Sean about my difficulties with communication. And he was like, okay, well, you've always communicated with me, so things seem fine. So thankfully, Sean has always been very mature and very solid in his thinking. So it was more telling about who they were.
Yeah.
But yeah, he handled that like a champ. That was crazy.
Oh my.
And then after that, my father and stepmom were telling people that they needed to break us up because we're just angry that they don't approve of our relationship. And so that's why we're not talking with them. We're just angry. And so that was fun to hear. Someone said, I will not be attending your wedding because they were told that I was angry. It was interesting for them to have nothing to do with me my whole life, but then start to be so controlling. Like, I remember my dad came into my apartment one time to talk about, it was inappropriate. And he's like, does he make you belly laugh? Are you in love with him? I'm like, I've been dating him for 2 months.
Yeah.
No, I don't know him yet. It was wild. And then I was like, okay, I have guests coming over at 5. You need to leave by then. He stayed until they got there. And then he greeted them and walked them into my living room and just started hosting them. And then he got a call and said, oh, I'm sorry, guys. I have to go because I got a work call. Otherwise, I would stay. Completely ignoring my autonomy, the fact it was my house. I was a possession. Dating sucked because we spent so much money without chaperones. Like, we became regulars at Panera and they recognized us because we kept going to the same one. It was hard to have conversations about anything because you're always in public. It's hard to have any deep conversations when you have people just right next to you eating. It wasn't great. Although because of all the stuff that happened between my father, it was just constant awful things. Like, it never let up. We got married very fast. I think we dated and were married within 5 months.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Looking back, we're like, what were we doing? But it was just so hard emotionally. We really like bonded and like worked through it together. So we're like, well, we're going to get married anyway. It was crazy though. I would never suggest that. But I remember I invited my father to the wedding and I said, you can come, but your wife can't because I can't emotionally handle it. And he said, okay, I'll get back to you. And then 2 weeks went by and he hadn't reached out. So I had to call him and he went, well, you made the choice not to have me there by not inviting my wife. But then he showed up day of and texted my husband, hey, I'm here. You can choose to tell Lindsey or let it be a surprise. Like, just showed up. And then Sean said, you can stay for the ceremony, but not the reception. And my father had said, okay. And then he tried to guilt me into inviting him to stay after because he was like, I have control over her. Sure, you can tell me no, but I'll just guilt her. But he didn't. So then he called my brother, apparently crying, saying, I got kicked out of the wedding. And then my brother got upset and my brother left. Because if he can't be there and get what he wants, then he has to ruin it however he can. He also, when he showed up, said, oh man, if only my wife was here, she would have made this place look amazing.
Wow.
After all the work that my father-in-law and his wife had put into it, and just, it was horrible. They were just so horrible.
Yeah.
I tried to salvage that relationship for a solid year. He would belittle me. I know Sean called one time and my father went, oh, poor Lindsey. She just can't move on. Because I tried to ask him, why did you let your wife abuse Colin and me? Like, why did you let him abuse my brother and me for all of these years? Where were you? He's like, well, your brother's moved on just fine. And he has a great relationship with her. But just mocking me, saying, poor Lindsey. Which was crazy. They're like, we could have a relationship if you would leave the past in the past. I remember I brought text receipts to some of that to the elders, and they went, oh, well, that seems rough. Well, just remember, don't talk about it to anyone. Don't spread, because it's like a fire. The more fuel you add, the flames will spread, and it'll be bad for the congregation. So then my husband and I had to sit with the fact that my father's a ministerial servant, being abusive, and just a horrible person. But nothing's going to happen, and I have to wait on Jehovah to do something.
Yep.
And that was horrible. Like, that's the thing about that organization, too. You just wait. And it's like, aren't you supposed to be the arms of God? Aren't you supposed to be moved by his Holy Spirit? Why is there so much waiting? It just didn't make any sense.
No.
So after a lot of other things and just my aunt getting involved because his family was angry at me for not talking to him, she shared misinformation with my father. He got angry. And I said, look, I can't talk to you anymore without the elders present. Get your elders together. And he was like, okay, I'll find out a time that works well with my wife. He waited 2 weeks to text me on my 1-year anniversary to say, it's only fair to have a few dates for the elders. And I just cut off contact right then because I'm like, that's there's nothing here. There never was. But
Yeah.
to wait 2 weeks for that specifically to ruin my 1 year,
Yeah.
I see who you are.
Yep.
It was disgusting.
Yep.
He's a horrible person. Then I worked for a brother, which I thought would be great, but I was called stupid in so many ways. Made to feel stupid, treated like I was stupid. It was so misogynistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I learned that there was a convicted child offender in a local congregation. And the one woman that worked there went to the same hall. And then there was a father who worked there. And his children were about the same age as the sex offender's children. And so I went in and I told the woman, and she's like, I think that happened a long time ago. And then the next day I went in to tell the guy, and the woman went, Lindsey, you should not be talking about that. That has nothing to do with you. And I was just so shocked. She spoke to me so venomously.
Yeah.
And then the father, because I had already said, hey, there's someone in a local hall who someone. And the father looked at the woman and went, does this concern me? And the woman went, no, it doesn't. So I'm like, wow, okay. And then she walked away, and then she came back and she went, by the way, it wasn't rape. It was consensual sex with a minor. The adult was 30 years old. Woman, you need to look up the laws. That's not how this works.
No.
But
no.
For her to say it was consensual sex with a minor, with that man right there, and he didn't want to hear anything else about it, how it might affect his children.
Yep.
I was like, I can't do this anymore. It was horrible working there. My boss would grimace if I spoke for over 10 seconds. I counted. He would grimace because he didn't want to hear me talk.
Yeah.
He got angry if I pushed back on anything. Like, he walked in one day and said, scientists just don't understand the birth process. They just don't understand life. And I'm like, don't they have books on that? And he's like, well, they just don't understand like Jehovah's view of life and when conception starts. And I'm like, no, they've literally written articles. And he's like, well, abortion is just a bad thing. And I'm like, depends on what your view is. Religiously, sure. Other people don't think so. And he's like, well, you could get an abortion 7 days before you give birth. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't quite sound right. And he's like, look it up right now. And I'm like, looking back, I know how I could have actually reasoned with it more, but it's just the goalpost always changed. Yeah. He didn't want to hear me talk. He's angry if you push back. My brother worked there for a minute, and the men there were so angry. It was like a constant pissing contest. They would yell at my brother. They would demean him. Mm-hmm. There was water on the floor, and this one guy would go, Colin, get over here. And he'd be like, clean that up. You're getting water everywhere. And this man, mind you, would leave garlic peels all over the floor regularly. And I'm like, you're the only one who uses garlic here.
Yeah.
And you're yelling at my brother for some water on the floor? How do you know that was him? It was so frustrating. I remember I was called sweetheart one time because he thought I was dumb. He's like, sweetheart. Like, wow. Yeah. I thought I was chronically ill working there. Mm. And then after I left, I realized I was not chronically ill, if that says enough about the situation.
That's horrible.
But so Sean had been having doubts about the religion for a while. He started sharing them during our first year. I had no rebuttals, so that made me panic and start doubting things. So I told someone who wasn't a friend, but was the closest thing I had at the time. And she went to the elders. And then they stripped Sean of all of his privileges. Even though it was questions, he wasn't like apostatizing or anything. We were barely making it to meetings. I basically stopped. We were asking for help from the elders. They were shunning us. I don't know what happened, but one day Sean was feeling well and an elder went, oh, wow, you look good. You've been looking horrible for months. I'm glad you look good now.
Wow.
But no one said anything the whole time. We finally had a shepherding call right before we left that hall. And I asked, why are we being shunned? What happened? Why are we being treated horribly? This is terrible. And the brother went, well, I'm not really here to talk about that. I'm just here to check on you, like, generally. So other than what you're upset about, how are you?
Basically, we weren't prepared for that question, so we're not going to answer it.
Yes. So that was pretty
That's
much the
insane.
last thing I could do with the religion. I had one more time where I sent a text that was like this long to a brother at the new hall we started going to saying, we need help. Sean's dad was just diagnosed with esophageal cancer. We were treated horribly at the old hall. We don't have like anyone helping us. And his response was, men are imperfect. God is perfect. I'll let the body know. And he never reached out again after that long, like, bearing my heart. And that was when I like kind of gave up. That was when I was like, I'm done going to meetings. I can't do this anymore. Sean reached out to another brother at the last hall while we were moving because he's supposed to be able to do like lawn work even if he doesn't have privileges. And he was checking in with the old hall, like, why am I not allowed to even do this lawn work? And a brother sent a long text, the same one that refused to answer my question during the shepherding call, saying, I don't think you realize how badly you're doing spiritually after we've been asking for all of this help.
Oh,
and then Sean's like, I think you're misunderstanding what's happening. Let me call you. And he's like, oh, no, it's okay. I trust you. And Sean's like, no, you're going to give me a call. He dodged Sean for 3 weeks. Oh, sorry, I have friends in town. Oh, sorry, my work is keeping me busy. Oh, I had more friends in town. And Sean finally went, I don't need a call anymore. Here are all the things that happen. Here's how you need to do better for someone else in this situation. I'm very disappointed in you. And the brother was like, oh, I'll try to do better. So then after we went to that new hall, it was the worst time of my life because I started waking up. I was severely depressed, sobbing for months. Between losing your hope for the future, like everything's a lie,
Yep.
So losing all the people around me, losing a community, like that was horrible. But it also gave me the space. Being shunned gave me that space to look into other sources and be able to ask questions that I hadn't been able to previously because I had nothing to lose at that point. I looked at JW facts. I saw the discrepancies in what we say we believe versus what's written. There's the book back here, Crisis of Conscience. I haven't finished it, but seeing the Malawi versus Mexico, the difference between the cards, cartilla cards, I think.
Yeah.
And how people were killed in Malawi and not allowed to, but in Mexico you could bribe.
Yep.
I couldn't believe that. I liked how Rutherford wasn't supposed to succeed Russell, but he kind of weaseled his way in there. Russell built himself a mansion for the resurrected people, but he lived there with his maid. His wife didn't live with him. Rutherford tried to appease Hitler during the war to make things okay, try to cozy up to him. And then when it didn't work, he started like saying horrible things about Hitler and drawing these awful cartoons. And that's why witnesses were abused and killed because of Rutherford. The court cases for child abuse, and I remember Splain gave a part, just because we settle out of court doesn't mean we're guilty. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, like, that's a huge sign you're guilty.
Right? Like, no, literally, you paid money so you wouldn't have to like face discovery. And then the Australian Royal Commission, seeing Jeffrey Jackson, it would be very presumptuous to say we're the only religion God uses. And then the Norway one recently where they said, we don't shun. No, it's up to everyone how much they want to talk to this person. Like, well, then what about my husband shunning his mom for 8 years, even though he loved her to death? What about me shunning my mom for a decade? If this was a matter of choice, then why wasn't I
allowed to make that?
Why was I told that wasn't a choice? So all of that was like, okay, that's what that is. It's just not, it's not right. So then Sean's dad was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. I sent that long text that I mentioned as like my last Hail Mary, and nothing happened. So he just kind of stopped going to meetings. The elders started getting mad that we weren't at meetings because we were taking care of Sean's dad. And we showed up to one meeting. And I remember a brother was like, we're getting old. We really need young brothers to step up and take responsibility and help out with the lawn in the middle of dealing with cancer.
Yeah.
another elder called him one time. I'm like, hey, I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. And I remember being a little hopeful, like, really? And Sean's went, well, actually, it's really not going well with Dad's cancer. And the guy went, well, actually, no, you don't have to get into that. It's okay. I just wanted to check and see how you're doing. And Sean's like, not well. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, I hope you get feeling better or something like that.
Oh my
And
goodness.
Sean was sent aggressive texts about not showing up for the meetings, about not being at the CO visit. They made a new service group chat with our phone numbers after we had been inactive for a while to try and get us to, and we refused to identify ourselves in the group text. So they got angry and they deleted the group text so that our numbers wouldn't be in it anymore. And then they removed us from New World Publisher, so we didn't have access from that. Or New World Portal, I don't know what it was. But then at that point, we're like, okay, this isn't the truth. Let's just ghost it and get away from it. So we just started ghosting everyone. I had one sister that kept messaging me for some reason, inviting me to the memorial, even though it shouldn't have been known that I was quite like inactive yet. She's like inviting me to the memorial, inviting me to her meetings, sending me programs and stuff. And then she called, I blocked her after this. They had, all the mergers and stuff that went on. And she called with an update from my hall.
Oh gosh.
Hey, your hall did this recently. And I was so mad. I'm like, I don't know you. And now you're going to call and update me on my hall. I was so angry. Like, they just talk. Witnesses just talk. That's all they have.
Yes.
All they can do is gossip and, oh, they're not going. Oh, do you know why? Because when I quit that witness job too, I got a text from someone who worked there. I wish that I could take away what your dad and his wife did, but, your relationship with Jehovah doesn't have to have anything to do with that. And I'm like, I haven't thought about them in like years. What gossip is going around to make you think? You just never know. People say what they're going to say. But thankfully, the ExJW subreddit, like I finally felt safe to look at that. That helped me feel seen and heard. I would post my experiences on there and people would say, yeah, I've had that, or that's horrible. And it really helped me feel like, oh, okay, that wasn't normal.
Yeah.
This isn't okay. This is because one thing is I used to think, oh, it's one bad congregation.
Yeah.
But then we went to another congregation and it was bad. And then we went to another congregation and it was horrible. And I realized that this isn't what they tell us. They tell us it's one bad congregation. They're all bad.
Yeah.
There are a couple that might be okay, but like for the most part, they're not all good. This isn't a once-off experience like we're being told. They're trying to sell us that, and that's just not how it is.
That's the argument I see all the time, and because I'm all over social media, so I like put myself out there, which means I then get the angry JWs or claim to be JWs that are in the comments, and it's like that there's just bad apples, or there's always going to be bad people. And it's like, yeah, but here's the thing. In this organization, I feel like the number of bad people versus actually kind-hearted good people who are just lost, it's the bad people who are the majority.
Yes.
Like, this is not one-offs. These people are serious. I mean, even the way you said you reached out looking for help, and it was just like, well, sorry. What are we going to do?
I had friends over.
It's like, and this is something I don't think people realize, that were either never Jehovah's Witnesses or they're active Jehovah's Witnesses and they're just blind. All it takes is you questioning, not God, questioning the way the organization is run, questioning the imperfect men that are running this, and you are shunned. You are blacklisted. You were treated horribly. And why is that? Ask yourself why. It's not like you're going out there and being like, oh, God's not real. I could see maybe them being upset about that.
Yeah.
You're questioning the men that they love to say, we're imperfect. As the governing body, Winder said, what did he say? We're not infallible. We're imperfect.
Not infallible and not inspired.
Like, okay, so then questioning you should not be the biggest sin that it turns into anytime someone does question you. Oh my goodness. So what year was it that you guys were like officially like awake and faded and stopped being like anything as a Jehovah's Witness? Was that pretty recently?
Let me see. I think we started questioning things. We definitely started questioning things in 22. And I think by 23, we were pretty like out,
Okay.
but still had to like, we went to the memorial with Sean's dad. And then we were pretty done in 24, like pretty completely done. And then we went to the memorial for Sean's dad. And then after that, I don't think we've stepped in a Kingdom Hall since. Like we've been gone. And then ghosted, just stopped talking to anyone who would reach out. So I've never been happier. Like I know in the videos they show, oh, this person faded or they're disfellowship, they're so unhappy. And like in some ways you could be.
Yeah.
If you have your community taken from you, for sure. I was very sad. Like it was horrible. But then once you rebuild and you have relationships outside of that, we have people that in our lives now that accept us for who we are. And it feels genuine. Whereas in the organization, you are accepted for what you do. You are viewed, oh, you're not commenting at the meetings? You're viewed poorly.
Yeah.
It's not a constant comparison or a constant judgment. We are who we are, and we're liked for that. And we can be good people. We have more energy now to be good people and be there for other people than we ever did in the organization because you're constantly doing things. You're at meetings, you're at service. You just don't have the time or the energy.
So yeah, the dramas are always like, oh, they're laying on the couch and they always have bags under their eyes and they've got like the alcoholic boyfriend. I'm thinking of the Sonia Erickson one where she was just like so depressed.
Yeah.
It's like the reality is, yes, it is hard. And yes, it hurts to lose people. And you do have to mourn the loss of those that you thought would be in your life forever. That's a very normal thing. But the reality is you're happier and you feel freer and you feel like a weight lifted off of your shoulders because you're not, like you said, people like you for you. And they're not looking at, well, did you go to a meeting or are you visible enough? Are you going out in service enough? It's not performative. Everything is like, hey, you have a cool personality. We have something in common. I love that. And that's been something for me that I've struggled with because I made a lot of like mom friends and I always have this like feeling of like, oh, I need to be reaching out more. I need to be like, touching base with them more. And like my best friend that I've made, every time I do, we'll go weeks. We send Instagram like reels to each other all the time. That's like the way of communicating. But anytime we get together, I'm like, I'm so sorry it's been so long. She's like, it's okay. Like life is happening. We both have kids. We have jobs. Like it's not a big deal. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess this doesn't have to be that big of a deal. This is the real world. Right. Like no one cares about that.
Yeah.
So
no, it's so understanding. Like everyone I've met has been so understanding and personable and welcoming.
Yes. It's kind of shocking.
It is shocking because you're told you'll be outcast. And it's like, well, if you act like you're a Jehovah's Witness who acts like a cult member, yeah, you will be.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's been nice, especially reaching out on that JW subreddit. I remember I started kind of testing some of my friendships to see how much they would let me say.
Oh, yeah.
And then I reached out, I made a post on the ExJW subreddit, and I found out one of my childhood friends was on the ExJW subreddit.
Oh my God.
So we actually picked the relationship back up, which has been really nice.
I love that. Yeah, the subreddit is huge. I feel like the communities we're finding more and more, thanks to social media, are so important. And while I do know, I see people who are like, I just don't want anything to do with anything ExJW, like that's been my past. I totally get that. But at the same time, I think it's so important to realize you're not alone in what you've gone through, the feelings you dealt with, the process of waking up. Like it's so healthy, I think, for us to find that common denominator. I'm not saying that's the only place you should be making friendships and community, but I think it's such a helpful thing. So I'm glad you've found it helpful as well, and it's been something good for you. It's so important. So important.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to like why you're choosing to kind of speak out. I don't think you have like social media. You do this, correct? Or am I wrong in that one? Okay. So what was it that kind of motivated you to do this?
I think mostly thinking that it might, it's always cathartic to kind of talk about what you've been through. after a while, like, I understand, like what you said, people are saying it's my past. But being able to share this so that maybe someone watching can realize, like, I was the most in person in the religion you could get. And just knowing it's okay, you can still wake up knowing, again, like, you did what you thought you should be doing. You're not a failure for waking up or leaving, or that's not a wasted part of your life either. You did a lot of good in what you were supposed to do.
Yep.
You know? So just thinking that this could help someone, that it could resonate with someone, because I know there are a lot of different stories that resonated with me. So I don't know, just knowing that you can go from being completely fully in to, like, it can hurt. I think that's also important to prepare someone that if it's your whole life, it's going to hurt to leave.
Yep.
It hurts to build a new faith system or navigate that, but it is possible. And I've learned now I was never really happy. I told myself I was happy because I had to, but like, there is truly happiness after you leave. I've never been happier in my life. So just hoping that someone can hear that and hopefully be reassured that there is joy and happiness after leaving, and you can even feel better. I think is really why I would like to share that.
I think that's great. And it's so, I think it's so important. That's, again, why I'm doing what I do. Everyone that can and is willing to give a voice, whether it's sharing your story, whether it's you posting little short things on TikTok or Instagram, whatever it may be, people need to understand, like, the end isn't when you leave. Like, that's just the beginning of life. You are going to go through hard parts. And I do also think sometimes social media can make it harder for people to see that, because I see all spectrums on being in the ExJW sphere when it comes to content creation. And I feel like sometimes you see people and it's like, why is their life going so great? It's so amazing. It doesn't seem to have bothered them. But I think it's really important to show kind of the good and the bad. Like, yes, it's hard. And yes, you're going to have ups and downs. And the healing process is, it's kind of a bitch. Like, let's be real. It's up and down. It's up and down. And you're going to have months where you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And then something's going to hit you. And it's a realization of maybe the people you've lost, or it could be a crisis of, like, beliefs. Like, oh my gosh, what do I believe? Like you mentioned, this hope we had laid out for you is now taken away. What do I believe in? And that can be something that's hard to navigate. So it's just so important to show all aspects of it. That's kind of why I've also been very vocal about even the bad parts. Like, yeah, it's okay. I'm 3 years in and I still have days where I'm like, on my couch crying because I'm of a memory of a family member or whatever it may be. And that's okay. That's going to be life. It's just, it's messy, but it's also really beautiful. So I really appreciate people like you who are willing to take the time to speak out and to share your story, because I have no doubt it's going to resonate with people. And like you said, you can be the most believer of believers and super, like, firm in that belief. And all it takes is you letting yourself kind of think for a moment, like, this doesn't feel right. Or in your case, you dealt with really crappy parents who treated you horribly, and realizing, like, hey, this is not okay. And, a loving God would not be allowing this in his congregation. You see it with elders mistreating people or pioneers mistreating people, whatever it may be. It just takes a little bit of thought process and allowing yourself the time to question. That's okay too. It's always something that drives me crazy. The fact that Jehovah's Witnesses are like, don't research outside of this. Don't look outside of us. It's like, yeah, if you had the truth, it wouldn't matter. You could be all over Google, all over YouTube, looking at every court case, and your truth would still be standing out instead it crumbles. So that should be a giant red flag.
Yeah.
But it's not, unfortunately.
If your faith is strong, then it shouldn't matter what you're looking at. And if it does, then, like, think about it.
Yeah. And I wish, like, Jehovah's Witnesses would stop for a minute and just go, because I feel like even more so lately, you see elders and COs and their like, whole families leaving together, not just a person, but like entire families, like you and your husband leaving together. Why is that? Ask yourself, if your faith is so strong, why is it pulling full families out? I'm sure they'll go, well, that's Satan. It's the very end. It's the last of the last days. Of course he's going to pull people out. But it's like, no, something's going on and maybe you should look into it. But I know they won't, unfortunately.
You know,
Well, I do. I really appreciate you doing this. So I always kind of end with the last couple of questions. You know, if you have advice for people, you know, you've mentioned why you wanted to speak out. Now, if you could give advice to somebody who is maybe in the questioning phase or maybe in that place of like something feels wrong or they're in the very beginning of like leaving and they're struggling, like what advice could you give to people?
I think the biggest thing is letting yourself think. That's how cults operate. They keep you in a place where you cannot think. That's why you're kept busy. That's why you're not allowed to look outside. Because once you start being able to use your own thoughts and your own brain, they know they don't have control. So being able to, I know we're told not to trust in ourselves, but that's the thing. Once you start trusting in yourself, you can then start making informed decisions. Trusting in yourself is not bad. You can look at information and see how does this align with what I'm feeling. If you don't feel right about something, the likelihood is something isn't right. So if you feel that, give yourself permission to look into it, because that's how I learned what I learned. That's how I learned the facts. Remember, you can always check and see if something's a fact, but if you don't know it's out there, then you can't check. So just give yourself permission to look. What harm is there in looking? You can choose whether or not to accept what you see.
Exactly.
So that would be my suggestion.
I love that. Yeah. The interview actually I released today, her advice was kind of similar, and hers was like, be a child, ask why, always ask why. And it's going to get you really far. Like, yes,
Yeah.
ask questions and trust yourself enough to be able to research and go, is this a truth or is it not? And if that truth is leading you out of the truth, then it's really not the truth to begin with. So,
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, before we go to our toast to finish us off, is there anything else you didn't get a chance to mention that you wanted to bring up or talk about? I want to make sure you didn't forget anything.
The one thing I would say, like for sisters, I wouldn't have been able to wake up if I hadn't been married. I will say that, because my husband was in such a horrible hole. Absolutely terrible people. I didn't realize what like a rat race it is for brothers. The things that they hide. The Elder's Manual is not a good book.
No.
Like, I think child and just regular are on the same level. Like, you will not get like in trouble really for that. It's not a godly book. The brothers treat people horribly. It's all like just showing off. Oh, I went and served. Oh, I helped sister so-and-so the other day. You have to showboat what you're doing. There was one guy that my husband had spoken to who said, yeah, you know, before I was an elder, I was told not to judge people. But now that I'm an elder, it's all I do. So you mean these people that have access to these very private things that I share with them are just judging me constantly? I was specifically told they weren't. They say horrible things. They make fun of people. I heard an elder take a call next to me one time. He put it on speakerphone, which is like, okay. But it was like a little elders meetings. And one guy had said, yeah, so we have this guy over here. Let's call him Jordan. I don't know. Jordan had, he had a bad experience in service one time. And so he's not really, remind him to be positive when he gives the talk tonight on service. Yeah, he had a bad experience. Like making fun of someone who knows what happened. I had a lady screaming at me when I was 5 years old. It was not good. But just the making fun of people, the looking down on people, even just in that one conversation, it's just a boys' club.
Yep.
So especially if you're a single sister, you won't see that. But like the organization is not what you think it is.
Yeah.
And unless you're a guy, you don't actually get to see that. So
yeah, I feel like the judgmentalness I feel like the higher you climb, the more judgmental you get in that organization. It's
Oh my
like
God.
the amount of people, like family included in that were pioneers and elders and servants and whatever. It's like, you're really ugly people on the inside. Like,
Yeah.
something is wrong. If you were, again, going back to, if this was Jehovah's organization and you were all the most spiritual people because you actually have Jehovah's Holy Spirit in your life, you would not be this ugly of a person. Like, that's a huge, another big red flag there. But again, when you're in it, you're just like, oh, they're imperfect. They're just imperfect. It's like, no, they're just terrible people that are getting getting some recognition and basically being like, yeah, it's fine to be terrible because we're all terrible.
Yeah. And other people put up with you. That's the thing. Outside of the organization, people would not put up with you.
No.
That's why they stay.
Yes.
Because they know they can abuse and they won't get any repercussions for it.
Yeah. Well, and in the real world, they're nothing. Like, it's what I look at.
Yes.
Almost every single person that I know, family, people in our last congregation that we were in, like these people who were like the big wigs in the hall, you know, they had assembly parts. They were, you know, always hosting, you know, people coming in from, we had like an assembly hall build here, probably 10 years ago. And like the people who got to host everybody that was coming in. Yeah. In the real world, you're nothing. You don't have good jobs. If you do, nobody likes you. Like, you're just nothing. So they get off on being something in an organization. It's like, those are the ones that'll never leave because they realize they're nothing in the real world. So
yeah,
it's sad.
it is really sad. But, you know, hopefully people can just wake up and just realize, no, they're not imperfect. They're bad people.
Yes. Yeah. I do think we're seeing the people leaving are the ones that like genuinely believed it. They had really good hearts. They were most likely abused in some way, shape, or form within that organization or in multiple ways for some of these poor people. The ones that are going to stay are the ones who are just narcissists and not good people because, again, they would... tomorrow they could change it all and say like, well, actually, we worship Satan. And they'll be like, that's fine. I'm going to still stay here because I get something out of it.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's why we're seeing so many people leaving because it's the good ones that are just like, something feels off. And thankfully...
And younger people specifically, which is why I'm very hopeful. Because the thing, okay, so they made their TikTok recently, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
I think that was the worst thing they could possibly have done. Because young people are on TikTok and all the ex-JW like content creators are on TikTok. What's going to come up when you search JW? I mean, I'm kind of grateful that they made their TikTok, honestly.
I am too. I think it shows how like disconnected they are from the real world. Like, an algorithm does not know the difference between JW and ex-JW. It's here's Jehovah's Witness in a video, and it's like, okay, this goes out to anybody searching for that. Yeah, it's going to backfire immensely, and it makes me very happy. So.
I know, me too.
I'm like, to any JW that's stumbled across this, hello, welcome to the new algorithm. Please stay and listen for a few minutes.
Yes. Just a minute, please.
Oh, well, I so appreciate you doing this. And I always finish these off the same way. I finish with a cheers, a lighthearted way of poking fun at a Jehovah's Witness who is sitting here and can cheers with us now, free conscience and all.
Yeah.
So I'll let you propose your toast now.
To waking up?
Cheers to waking up. I love that. Cheers to waking up and freedom and finding true happiness in the real life. Best life ever. For real. Well, thank you again so much for doing this. I so appreciate it. And for everybody who has sat here and listened to Lindsey share her story, as always, remember, these are real people who've taken time out of their day, who have sat down, and this is not always the easiest thing to do. So make sure you're always giving, nice comments, showing kindness and love in the comment section here. YouTube is usually really good about doing that. So if this were anywhere else, it'd be like, okay, I'm gonna have to block everyone because we get some nasty ones. But YouTube is always so nice. So thank you so much, YouTube, for being such a great community. And as always, if you have a story you would like to share, in the description, there will be a link to reach out to me and we can get something set up so you can share your story just like Lindsey did. You can also share an anonymous story through a letter. And with that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video.